Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
We're back at you in Gloves Off. I'm Paul Buitrón, and today we're going to touch base on a subject matter that everybody's afraid to step on, and that's called parental alienation. Many people think that parental alienation is actually a form of child abuse, and greatly so. I'm in that opinion as well. We have a young lady, Tracy Kittle, that's going to come in here, and she's going to explain her story of what happened and move forward, and hopefully reason together and what we can change for this not to occur again. Okay, how are we doing today?
Oh, I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Doing fine. You're where are you at? You're in California?
Oh, I'm actually up in Portland, Oregon right now. I'm a very nomadic person. I actually spent a little bit of time in Arizona before I wound up here. So it's been a bit of an adventure, I guess.
Are you having the bad weather we're having down in Texas or no?
Oh, well, the sun decided to come up today. So it's actually been quite pleasant. It kind of did a false spring on us there for a minute where it got cold. But no, it's nice. It's definitely different from, I come originally from Texas, where, the land of it changing every 5 minutes. So it's at least kind of consistent here.
We get all the seasons within one day.
Exactly. And then there's also tornado season, which I just don't miss it. I don't miss that at all.
As we speak, it started raining and where we're at, and you can see the lightning and so on and so forth. It's kind of, so it's going to bring some coolness to the 100-degree weather that we've been getting. But let's touch base on yourself. Explain to us your story and talk to us about parental alienation and how we can avoid that.
Yeah. So my name, like we said, I'm Tracy Kittle. I am on the executive board of something called the Heroes Circle. And what we are is we are an alliance of adult children of parental alienation. And I mean, who I am and how I got here has just been such a journey, really. A lot of it just came through, I've had a history of struggling with mental health. There's a lot, just such a lot of abuse has happened. And that is unfortunately one of those demographics that kids who come from kind of a more, trauma-related background run into, is kind of repeat abusive situations. And so I dealt with a lot of things all the way up to my youth. I unfortunately did not have the resources to constantly stay in counseling as needed. And I definitely would describe it as a struggle for a long time. Eventually, I got a little bit more into even self-educating. For a little second there over in Lubbock, Texas, I actually studied psychology. And that's what really kind of opened my eyes a little bit, maybe to some of the things I could be doing to even help myself. A good introduction to psychology can do that to some people. So carrying on there, I worked with different counselors and got, a little bit better, but I always just kind of couldn't help. There was a nagging question of not really understanding, why things were so hard for so long. And that just kind of kept me keep digging in. And the first time I got really aware and kind of suspicious of, why things went south with my father, because that's who I was alienated from, was my father. And that's probably not really surprising, the statistics there. I'm also from Texas, so we kind of understand how some area of Texas can play out in that way. So I first got introduced to kind of some of the fathers' rights movements and concepts when I lived in Arizona. So I wasn't even really looking to look into myself anymore at that point. I was being introduced to it as, hey, like maybe this isn't a great thing that we're doing to kids.
You're absolutely right. A lot of people recognize that something is going wrong. They understand that there is something happening, but they cannot pinpoint the name. and the name is parental alienation. And you see it happening all the time. You see it within your cousins, or you grew up with your friends, and you see that happening, and you know that there's something there. You just can't pinpoint. But now it's out of the bag, and that's what it is. And now people know that it's here. And what happens is that we need to change so much for us to stop this, because it is child abuse, and it's embedded inside families. It's embedded inside cultures. It crosses boundaries. I mean, it's something that, I don't care what ethnic or race you're from, it's there. It has to be stopped.
Absolutely. There are 3.9 million children affected from moderate to severe. And
Sure.
that's a number I do like to remind people of a lot, because it's jarring. It's very jarring to hear how many, because, I didn't think that it happened to very many people. It just seemed almost like, you either love the parent that you end up not spending time with, or you don't. Like, it seems a little bit more clear in hindsight, right? Because when you're a kid and you're in the middle of it, that was one of the few times I ever felt empowered by my, custodial, my primary parent. I throw that in quotes because, some of the language. I don't really agree with the concept of there being a primary parent, and that's kind of part of what I want to talk about. But, it's the little things that are even just kind of okayed by culture, in a sense. Look at how people break up. Like, even when children aren't involved, we're not even practiced on having mature breakups when it's not complicated. So you want to talk about, as a culture, there's even small things like that feed into this bigger issue. And that's actually something I've brought up to some of my friends when I do start talking about parental alienation and how it's affected my life. It's like, everybody could kind of do a part a little bit. You could walk away from conversations where somebody is bad mouthing their ex, just because they're their ex, not because there's kids involved or anything. And maybe we can pull away some of this kind of really aggressiveness we have just during breakups in general. Like, you can't say that doesn't affect, to a point, how much we start fighting it out, because you literally have a judge that gets to tell you who the good guy and bad guy was in this situation. So I very much feel that there's a very interesting amount of cultural fuel to this fire too.
You're absolutely correct. And you said something there, Judge. To me, and this is my opinion, and I say this openly, the person that plants the seed for parental alienation is the judge. As soon as that gavel hits wood, that seed is planted. And the reason I say that is because many of them, like you said, they make somebody the enemy. They make somebody the bad guy, even if they're not. And usually it's the fathers, the percentages, it's the fathers. And there are some moms that are involved as well. Yes, there is. But, you have that, and all of a sudden that they're the bad guy. They become the visitor. They don't become anything else but a visitor. You have to do this, you have to do, and it's just, and I saw it. I experienced it. I've seen it with other people that are there. It's something that is it, and maybe they don't recognize that it's happening, or if they do, they don't care. I do not know. I can't say anymore. The excuses are to make up excuses for them. It's no longer there. It's just something that's happened. And it's happening so often. A lot of laws, a lot of things that are there, they just forget just to be able to place somebody to be able to pay child support under the Attorney General. And that's sad. That's sad, and there's so many other laws that are broken by law enforcement agencies that are not followed, especially in Texas. We have Penal Code 2503 that they just could care less. And, that fuels parental alienation. That gives them more power to continue with that. And like you said, there's different cases. There's cases that are very minute. There's huge cases that are you're like, really? That's happening? You understand what I'm saying? And
Oh
it's
yeah,
and it's
there's
bad.
overt and covert
Mhm.
forms of this. Like this isn't always looking like bouncing a child from city to city and changing their name. Like that is very overt alienating behaviors. But I wholeheartedly agree that when that gavel comes down, because something I have been kind of, saying a little bit more lately is that I feel the best role the court could play is to find a way to not be involved in most of these cases. If a parent is ready, willing, able, and there's no like justifiable reason for them to not be with their child 50% of the time, it should just be a rebuttable presumption of 50-50 type situation. There's more people talking about this, and that gets me excited. And I don't know if this is something you've covered a lot, like on this podcast, but for those that don't know, essentially it kind of the best you can get if somebody wants to fight about it is half the time. So I like these, and you can even still use like mediators to help facilitate these things if you're having a hard time communicating. But it sure would be nice if we just took this out of the venue, the arena that is the family court system, that is winners and losers.
You're correct. There's a lot of things that need to be changed. I think there's something, and I'm going to talk about Texas. There's a lot of bills that are in front of the House, in front of the Senate right now that are going through that will stop or would stop a lot of parental alienation, especially, and there's so many, and it seems like some legislators are understanding it, their eyes are open now to it, that it exists.
Mhm.
So now they're paying attention and others are not. So let's see what happens. Let's see, I haven't lost faith. I think it's going to take some time, but you're not the first, I'm not the first, we're not the last. So let's just make sure that this doesn't happen to those that come after us. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to work with the Heroes Circle so much is I don't have children of my own. This is not something that I'm trying to fight for me. This is very much my story. I want to get it out there because overall, I would just like to stop the bleeding. I don't want to add any more of that to that millions of kids that have been affected by this. I want it to stop. And I think it's a good thing to fight for, and I'm in it. The every other weekend visitation schedule needs to kind of go. Like the fact that that's still being used so much in this day and age with how much literature and research that actually has been put into this, it's really kind of frustrating for me. I'm in some support groups, and somebody had asked me if I was still mad at my father. And I actually said, like, honestly, no, I'm not mad at him. I'm really upset at a family court system that really still seems to set this up to happen so easily. So I guess that is what I am on fire about and why I'm here today.
Yeah, absolutely. When did you recognize the term parental alienation and connected the dots?
So it still took a little while. I moved to Arizona in 2009, and I really didn't become introduced to the official term parental alienation until like probably within this last year or two. Just going down, the support group route, I guess. I was looking for something to kind of devote my time to. I had become familiar with the fathers' rights movement in Arizona, and that was really kind of some of the first thoughts that I had, where I was like, okay, I think some things are maybe stacked against my dad, because I have always been bothered. I was such a daddy's girl, and for that to just be gone one day is very devastating. It is absolutely traumatizing for a child to suddenly just lose that connection, even if it's been fraying over time. Once that snaps, it can be very hard to reconnect that connection. And so it was a traumatic moment for me, I know for sure. And so I had kind of connected the two, like my mental health and then also like this father's rights concept. So fast forwarding, I'd actually started to spin up volunteering officially through the Oregon's father's rights movement. And that's where I first heard about like rebuttable 50-50. And I first heard about, parental alienation started, coming into my area. And they were great people. I can't emphasize enough. But when it came down to it, my heart was more, I wanted to focus more on the kids, on more of me out there. And there's a lot of wonderful people who support the fathers' rights movement. And I like them. So, and that's, I guess, where I'm glad I eventually got connected to Victim to Hero and did an interview with Petra Dieter. And that was what kind of started the conversation of then opening up the Heroes Circle and talking about what we could do to not only start building a community, because we started learning like there's more of us out there, and there wasn't already kind of a group just for that. There's a lot of mixed groups, which is where I've honestly met more adult children of parental alienation, but there weren't any specific, like just for us to kind of have that safe space, which is one thing that, we are doing with the Heroes Circle. We have a nice Facebook community that we are growing. But I'm also a big proponent of connecting some of them to these bigger groups so that we can talk together. But so, yeah, I guess that's really how I got to the parental alienation story of my life and where I got involved with, I guess, getting into the Heroes Circle.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story. Sorry that you and everybody else has gone through it, and, we can't bring back time, but I think the time that we have, we can fight for it not to happen again. And,
exactly.
Some of the groups that are out there, they're advocates, they're doing wonderful work. Deetra's doing great. I think, she's wonderful. Everybody else that's fighting out there for the rights, and for our children not to suffer this. I mean, you all are champions for our children. And, there's a lot of legislators out there that are doing it, and they're standing up and they're going against the grain with what they say. And I think it's a beautiful movement now. And I think now we have the ball growing. I was talking to the district attorney, and this is somebody that I've known since a kid. We grew up together here in a small town, right? And now it's a city. And we're talking about how there's a lot of youth that the fathers aren't around. And I said, yeah, they're not around, but the police and everybody always says, we're the fathers. And I go, you guys don't allow the kids to see their fathers. Start enforcing the rights. And he goes, you know what? You're right.
Yeah. And it was a lot of those,
that,
yeah, it's a lot of those growing up fatherless studies that kind of led me to understanding that why I struggled so much with the things that I had, for mental health. It was real for a long time for me before I broke that cycle within myself. So yeah, if you're not letting the fathers be around,
and you all are the police officers, you all are the ones that can stop it. It can at least stop it in some instances. It'll put a stop to a lot of the parental alienation, the ones that are just starting to get advanced. It's going to stop all that right away once you start enforcing visitation rights.
Exactly. And it was actually one of your shows that I had listened to where I had heard talking about a bill introduction that would allow like a ticketable fine. Sure. For not doing that. And that is something I wholeheartedly is like, oh yes, let's go ahead and support this, because then you're not putting the officer in that awkward position of having to arrest a parent in front of a child, right? Because you're calling them for an exchange time. Like I could see wanting to avoid that. And this doesn't need to be any more traumatic for that child than your parent with a lead foot getting pulled over and getting a speed ticket. It really just doesn't need to. And then I could see that taking away that incentive, because now you do want your child to go and visit the parent, which you should, right? Like it seems so common sense. When you live in the same home, you support a healthy relationship with the other parent. If little Timmy's mad at dad, you talk them into working it out. Or if they're mad at mom, whatever direction, like that should be supported even after the divorce happens. And that's where, some courts do require, some kind of like kids first type situation, a little class that it's really, to be real, it turns into a check in the box. You take the little class that tells you what's best for the kids, and then you do your one mandatory, if you have to do a mediation. And then you still just am getting piped right through court, though. That's my one problem with the current system. It's like it's kind of starting to get in there informationally, but it's not enough. And I think it's interesting. There's some areas where you still have to get counseling for marriage, but you don't have to get counseling for divorcing with children. And I'm not saying that might always be required. I'm just saying maybe it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world in some of these higher conflict situations.
Tracy, you're absolutely correct. There's a lot of stuff that's done before marriage, and and afterward they're kind of like again, it's a system that's failed. It's failing all the time. But going back to that bill, we've had many fathers' rights movements. The group from 2503 and other groups, we all got together with state representative, both Tracy King and Richard Raymond, and as well as the city attorney of Laredo, Isidro Alanis. And it was just a hodgepodge, which we said, hey, can we just give them a ticket? It's not being enforced. In the municipality, we had the city manager in one podcast show, as well as some city council members, Dr. Martinez and Mercurio Martinez as well. So they said, let's check and see if we can do that legally. And they said, no, you can't, because you have to do it. So we said, well, let's send a resolution for us to change it as the city. And the city of Laredo stepped up and did that and went forward. And it's passed the House. Now it's heading to the Senate. Hopefully it gets through. I believe that if this goes through, the first person that gets a ticket, I guarantee you that the next time that child is going to be ready with their clothes, waiting for the father or mother to pick them up on the next visitation day. I guarantee you that's going to happen. And you're going to see the change of attitude with everyone.
Exactly. If this parent can successfully get this child to go to a doctor's appointment, they should be able to help groom at least a good enough relationship to go visit their other parent.
Absolutely.
Because one of my little humble opinions on the matter is that if you are a custodial parent with majority of the parenting time, and you honestly believe that your child's relationship with the other parent is not your problem, that might be part of the problem here. Because again, it goes back to, and it's so much more clear when you're under the same roof. There's really no reason to not still encourage that relationship. And that's just one of those cultural things I'd love to see normalized, because you do see it sometimes. Like, I'm in some positive type arenas too, and I see a lot of beautiful blended family stories. That's really great for the kids. Everybody gets along. Are you kidding? You have a tribe raising this child. Sure. And then what's sad to me is that a lot of times, like, some of the excuse, the reason, I'm sure that they feel it is a legitimate reason, but one of the reasons, the first go-to reasons, is I don't want to lose the child support. It's like, whoa, wait a second. This child support is not meant to be, an income, right? It's supposed to be a calculation of an assumed expense, like on food, on how much more water they use, because they shower, kids, they use stuff and you spend money on them. It wasn't built to be an income. So it being viewed like that is something that's really interesting and kind of perplexes me.
No, you're absolutely correct. And you mentioned something culturally, we have to change it. And you're absolutely correct. Sometimes the parental alienation comes from the grandparents, the ex-brother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, the aunts and uncles always dishing the father or mother from that, it's separated, that don't see the child. That needs to stop.
Yeah, it all does. And that's where I do hope that the things that we can fight for, right? We can push for bills, we can push to try to get like the rebutable presumption of 50-50 in more states, because sometimes our culture changes when the laws change. Something I like to relate that to is spanking in a sense. That used to be total normal part of my household when I was a kid. There were kids that were spanked, and it even happened sometimes in the school. Now that is completely unheard of to think about that. And a lot of that came from changing laws and kind of having more conversations on like, hey, there's other ways to discipline children that's not, spanking them. So there is kind of an attacking it from both sides. And a lot of that is working to figure out how we can change these laws, get these bills going, make it where a lot of these cases that never need to take time in family court. Because by the way, that's also just backstacked and could honestly use the relief for the cases that actually do need it, that do have complications going on, so that they can focus on those and leave these that are really just more just fighting for the win versus lose to just kind of, deal with having to mediate and figure out something that actually works than taking up court time. So but meeting it from both directions, changing what we can, and then also trying to create just more awareness in general. And honestly, that's where I can kind of segue a little bit. Something that we are working on as a project with the Hero Circle is we are trying to collect stories from people like myself, from adult children who are ready to be heard. And that book is, I had the name in front of me, Parental Alienation, The Aftermath. So that's another thing that, by the way, if any of your listeners out there is an adult child who is alienated and do want to reach out, you can definitely reach out about that through theheroescircle.com. But yeah, I think starting a book and then starting to figure out where we can all work together, right? Because there's so many groups who want to see these changes.
And that's where it's at. There's so many groups that want to see these changes, and there has to be a mediation of where everybody's going to be at. Everybody has great ideas, but sometimes those ideas don't meet what legislation is looking for. Sometimes we have to bend just a little bit for us to be there. We can change it later on once they understand, hey, this is working. You can amend the bill. You can amend the law. You can do that. There's things that you can do, just changing and tweaking. And they have to do it all the time. So we have to understand what's going on there. There's way too many parents out there, and I see their passion. I see their frustration. I've lived it. You've lived it. We understand it, but we have to kind of just stop, centralize ourselves, and be calm about what we have to do. And I see a lot of folks out there that are going down the rabbit hole. We have to just get them and pull them out of that rabbit hole, and we have to do that because one thing that frustrated me last year, and I was kind of at all, was that with the pandemic that we had. And I'm talking about Texas. There was a lot of fathers that did not have jobs, lost their jobs, did not have the support to work. And yet not even the Attorney General said, you know what, let's freeze this, we'll take care of it. You just have to come back. Let's see how we can do that. You had to continue paying at a time. I've been current, never been late, but I know a lot of people that were struggling, and some of them were going down that rabbit hole, and you had to come up there and start helping them out. Hey, let's do this and see how we can do it. And there was no mediation. There was no help whatsoever. There was no extended hand. When they caused the jobs to stop, the works to stop, then they continued with, guess what? You still have to. It's hard. It's hard for many people,
and in multiple ways.
We have to start that cultural. We have to stop it now. And that's how I think we can start.
Yeah, because how great could it have been if mom did not lose her job, or mom did have the ability? I usually try to go parent A, parent B, but you're talking about fathers losing their job, because I do understand, like in Texas, there is kind of a demographic there, right?
Right.
But yeah, like when parent A, right, if they still had their job and everything, but had the kids majority of the time, let's say, but parent B lost their job, right? Well, what was another big situation in the pandemic? Well, we had kids that needed a parent to watch them during the day. Like, it just seems like there was a lot of missed opportunity. And to me, it kind of really showed how committed some of these custodial parents are to kind of these more covert alienating beliefs and attitudes. Just how in it is, like, really the other parent to your child not being thought of as that immediate first resource during a literal pandemic. And this is, there's groups, there's stepmom groups and family groups. I'm sure you're a member of different ones. And these are very common stories being posted.
Sure. And there's a lot of them. And sometimes, it's, you try to reach out to some folks. You try to say, hey, let's do this. Well, we're always here. And I tell everybody, if you need some help, give us a call. We can find somebody that can help you. And my number's public, I'll say it here, 956-401-4868. Give me a call. If you need some help, we'll find some help for you. Believe me, we will do that. We have to grow together. There's always there's chances for that. There's things that happen that we can not outgrow it, not forget about it, but we can live through it. And and there's help out there. There's some people out there. I think bit by bit, we're chipping away that block. I think here in Texas, I think hopefully some of the bills go through. Hopefully they don't kill them. And, that's what I'm afraid of, because they're, for whatever reason, but we have to think about our children first.
Exactly. And
I want to thank you for continue doing what you're doing. I want to thank you for telling everybody your story, because that pain can ease somebody else and say, you know what, let's move forward. And that's what you've done. And I want to thank you and thank the group as well as Victims to Heroes. And anything you all need, we're still here. We're here. Let's see what we can do. See how we can push it forward.
Yep. Anything to get it out there, right?
Anything else you'd like to talk about?
Really just that final big topic of the linchpin to this is really getting parental alienation back to being recognized for what it is. It needs to be recognized as child abuse. It needs to be back in the diagnostic and statistical manual, which is what our psychologists and counselors use. Like, that's going to be such a big part of this. And I think that's where I'm most excited about more people talking about it in general, is that hopefully now we can start picking this apart and getting to this to get this back to being recognized. Because I think that's also going to provide help, proper education for mandatory reporters so that we can stop this from happening in the future. For mediators, so when they are working with parents, they can see kind of some of these signs early and help actually maybe even be as a witness in cases where it needs to be that way, and then also getting victims connected to either reunification therapy resources or getting proper mental health care afterwards. Because, I never got a counselor to put together that what it really came down to was parental alienation for me, because I don't think anybody had ever really been trained on it. I had seen counselors. I think there would have been opportunity for this to have been identified earlier. And so wherever we can, let's at least get awareness that parental alienation is very real and really could use to be recognized by our psychological community.
Absolutely. Once more, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the work that you all are doing with that group. It's magnificent. It's something that is going forward, and we have a proclamation also here from Laredo, because the city of Laredo and our mayor recognized Parental Alienation Awareness Day. So it's a thumbs up. We'll continue doing that.
I love hearing good stories from Texas. Let my home state make me proud.
And you should move back. Texas misses you.
Oh, well, what's funny is I'm just making the circle. Now I'm actually going to go we're going to the East Coast for Maine. So.
Yeah. Maine's one of the states. I have a lot of friends that are over there. And when are you coming up? When are you coming up? We went to school. Went to school in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm gonna tell you a story. And we were all there, and everybody kind of went everywhere else. And we kept in touch. Even through college, we'll visit each other. And some of them live in Maine. And it's a state that I've never been to, but hopefully I'd love to go.
Well, maybe if you come up, we could have a lobster roll. I hear the lobster is like the cow of Texas there.
Well, yeah, we can have that. We can take some steaks from here as well. We'll do something well.
Oh man, some home cooking. There you go. Some home steaks from Texas. It doesn't get any better. But no, really, thank you for having me on. And I'd be glad to come on again if you wanted me. So it was very pleasant talk.
You know, what we need to do, we have to continue pushing this forward. We always have to continue making sure that people are understanding that parental alienation is the problem. We need stories to come out, stories like yours, positive. We need others that come out there and share their stories for people to recognize that this occurred. You know, we can no longer have that. You know, we have to stop the subculture of this divide.
Exactly. And that's where I'm really hoping this book is going to help with that. And then there's also with Victim to Hero. I mean, one of the first interviews I did was interviewing adult children. So I know that's an event we are still currently doing once a month. And yeah, things like that, keep it on topic, and let's get more people talking about this so it can make the path to normalizing some of these things. If we want to normalize shared parenting, if we want, you know, parental alienation to be actually recognized on an official level, then we got to be okay with talking about it. You know, problems don't tend to be fixed when we turn a blind eye and say it's not real.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to thank you once more for coming on the show. And you stay safe over there in Oregon. And folks out there, if you like the show, press like, share it, because this is a topic that hits many, many kids across the nation and many adults who have lived through it. And, you know, you can point them on the right direction and they can get some help if they need to. And remember, stay safe, be safe. Till next time, peace.
Today, in America, more than 5.5 million men, women, and children train in a martial art regularly. Buitrón Academy has been serving Laredo for over 30 years now. Our adult classes are geared for producing the best in you, teaching you street-ready techniques. With the arts of Savate and Kinpo, you'll learn the traditions of these sciences of combat as passed down professor to student.
Bonjour, friends of Professor Buitrón. The COVID-19 scare is almost over. Be sure to bring the kids back to the professor's training and help them build their bodies, self-respect, self-confidence, and self-defense. The professor is a very competent and amazing man of several talents, aside from being a lovable teddy bear and a funny man. Get back to the studios. This is Sam Booth calling from Phoenix, Arizona. Have a great training. Bye for now.
Hello, my name is Manuel Lozano. I've been trained in the martial arts for close to 50 years. I trained in many martial arts from different masters and grandmasters throughout the years, from the 70s all the way to now. I've known Professor Buitrón for about 30 years. He has done the same, trained in many different arts with many masters. He's traveled all over France, studying with surviving Savate grandmasters, did his research. This man not just knows the fighting techniques and the art, but the philosophy, the history and the strategy, and applying this arts combined with all the other arts. So this man is a wealth of knowledge for anyone seeking instruction in real martial arts and street martial arts. This is the school to go to in Laredo, Texas. For those of you who are away from Laredo, this is the guy to look for, okay? He's very well versed in all the fighting styles of the different arts he is trained in, and I would highly recommend the school.
Hi, this is Mike Lackery of San Antonio, Texas, home of CMOC and the Wing Chun Boxing Academy. I'm here to tell you about my good friend Paul Buitrón. He is reopening his school in Laredo, Texas. Paul is a wealth of knowledge. I've known him a long time. I highly suggest everybody in that area get with it. Go down there and train. Times are getting tough here. And with this COVID-19, we need to support local business. So I highly suggest go see Paul Buitrón at the Don Zerou Sabat Academy in Laredo, Texas. You will not regret it. Be good.
Come train at the best kept secret of Laredo. Give us a call for your free evaluation at 956-401-4868 or check out our website at savat.biz. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook.